Skinny boy squeeze with a busted knee.
I know it's been weeks this time. Most of the time it just takes like a couple of days. This time it's been a few weeks.
How's 40 treating you? Oh, let's start.
Oh yeah, 40's great
40's
so far.
Great.
Can't complain.
Just light on your feet.
Just light on my feet.
Just real delicate.
I don't know. I've taken ibuprofen for it a few days, but then I'll go and do like squats and I'll do like yoga where I'm like bending it all around and stuff. And I feel like it feels better, but that could just be like adrenaline afterwards or the endorphins or something. So I don't know. I'll just ask them to saw it off. And
it's like when I woke up on my 40th and my foot hurt.
yes.
Yeah.
It's just like that.
The infamous foot pain. At least yours has a cause. We never did figure out the foot pain.
Yeah, that is a mystery still. Maybe it'll be 41 when you'll figure that out.
Or maybe 41 I'll wake up and it'll start hurting again. Because it was only like a couple days. It was just like, happy birthday, your foot hurts, you're old now.
That's true. That was a nice welcome to the hill.
Yeah. Yeah. It took me a second, but yeah, I get the hill. And I'm over it now. No, because it'd be over the hill.
Right.
So welcome to the other side of the hill.
That's what it is, really. I was hoping you wouldn't actually catch that. But you're too quick.
Yeah, I'm feeling better after, was it last week that my voice sounded like garbage?
Yes.
Still does a little bit.
And
Still not
every
the prettiest.
week before that, zing.
Oh, good one. Okay, so here we are. The way that we've switched, well, we already told them about our new table, but I realized that now that we had all this teasing when we had the Halloween stuff up of like, oh, Christmas tree, and now they can't even see our Christmas tree because it's over there.
It looks great, though.
It does look great. I didn't do any ornaments this year. This was a big, I feel that sounds really bah humbuggish. I'm like, I don't know if I want to do a tree. I'll do a tree, but no ornaments. And
yeah, well, you pitched it though as like I'm going to do a minimalist.
Yeah,
tree.
we are doing. Yeah, we did a minimalist tree, a minimalist Christmas, and I actually like it. My thought was sort of, you guys can't see our entire apartment. You're just getting a little glimpse. But my thought, usually I have like a color scheme. Actually, right. I always have a color scheme. It's usually like, we're doing red and white or black and white or like red and gold. This year I decided to just go with our color scheme is green because we have so many plants now.
Right, we do. They can see that one up there.
And and your chair is green. Like I've been loving the green thing lately, and the chairs that I want to get to go at this table are green. And yes, I've just been loving that our place has been black and green, and I'm like, I'm just going to keep it that way for Christmas. And I put up the tree, which is obviously green, and we're done.
Yeah.
We have those pesky cranberries on the garland over there.
Oh, I know. Well, at least they're flocked, so it's kind
That's true. Like blends in with the wall.
Right.
But
yeah.
I love that you know the word flocked.
Well, okay. This is an interesting. What would you call one who flocks? Like with let's say
for sure a flocker. I bet.
That's what I thought too.
That would be a cool job. What do you do? I'm a flocker, and people say, "Excuse me,"
and I would go, "Listen, I flock every day.
I flock all day.
Sometimes I flock 2 at a time.
I'm really good at flocking.
People come and watch me flock."
Okay, maybe a little. No, you look expectant on that one. No, I feel like
I thought we were going to one and then the other.
No, I got distracted by actually wondering if there are
thinking about me flocking.
No, wondering if there are flockers out there. Like, I guess, or is it machine? I bet it's a machine.
Well,
I
yeah.
bet there's a machine flocker.
But
a flocking machine.
A robot flocker.
Yeah.
But I do think if you want to be like, get something, if you want to get something like artisanally flocked, I think that would be a person flocking.
Yeah, artisanally flocked. First of all, I didn't know that you knew the word flocked. I didn't really know that you knew the word artisanally. I mean, I know that you know what they mean, I guess, but I didn't know that you would drop them casually into a sentence like that.
Well, it's not like I use them all the time, but I think about flocking pretty frequently, especially around the holidays. It's a great time to flock.
A great time to flock.
I like to flock.
I'm bringing in a question.
Okay, yeah.
We
what
haven't
about a
done
question?
these in a while.
I know.
But
I missed them.
You know what? You know how I'm being like so flexible now with the podcast. I've let
Right.
this go over. I won't make you do one question per episode anymore. So if we get bored with this question, we can move on.
I'm loosey goosey just like you. We can do however many.
Well, everybody knows that. Okay, what is the worst advice you've heard? What's the worst advice you hear being told to someone just starting out in your field?
Flock harder. Nothing. Okay. That's fine.
Held on to the silence there. I just feel like we're leaning, like the flock thing has passed.
I know.
Unless you get a really good one later, then I'll allow it. But
it was probably too soon for a callback.
yeah, I think it was. Because I very intentionally brought this thing out to move you on from flocking and you weren't ready.
That's true. I went right back. All right, that's fine. Okay, so the worst advice I hear to somebody in my field.
So somebody just starting out. So like, let's say that there is a newbie out there, like a brand new comedian just getting started in stand-up. Like, is there any sort of like conventional stand-up wisdom you hear being passed on to these people, or something that you heard? That's another way to think of it. Is there anything that you were told early on when you were starting out, maybe repeatedly? Like, is there like a conventional bit of wisdom going out to newish stand-up comedians that you think is trash?
Yes.
Okay, tell me.
Everybody says you should get as much stage time as possible.
You did hear that a lot.
Everybody says.
But you know what? I'm going to jump in this really. Can I interject something?
Interject.
I heard people telling him that a lot too. Like just like hanging out like early on when I was a little bit more part of your world, like when I was more supportive and hang out. But like what was so funny is the people that I heard saying that weren't particularly successful.
Yeah.
Like you didn't very often hear that from people where you're like, oh yeah, I want your career path.
Right.
So anyway, okay, I interjected, and it's not my business. You can continue now.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say this in a very clippable format, because that's what all the people are doing. All the kids are doing this.
Cool. Okay.
The worst advice new comedians get is to get as much stage time as possible. There we go. That's the clip.
I like that.
That's going to be but no, and the reason why I think it's the absolute worst advice is because everybody says it, and it's not the most important thing. If new comedians spent more time writing, then they would be able to maximize the value of the stage time, the very little stage time that they do get. That, I think, the most important thing is writing. And I think what a lot of this tracks back to is there was like in 2013, there was like this, I don't know if it's a Reddit article or there was like this Google version of Reddit, I think years ago, like Google Groups or something. I don't know what it was. But supposedly some kid...
You say, like I know what that is.
Right, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, we all were on Google Groups. Weren't you a Google Grouper? A Google Groupie? Anyway, some kid asked Louis C.K., what's the one piece of advice? And Louis said, get as much stage time as possible. And then he also said, which everybody I think doesn't do or also forgets, he also said, read a lot, educate yourself, become a better person, because that's what's going to make your stand-up, that's what's going to make your act interesting and funny. But the big thing he said was get as much stage time as possible. I think he may have taken for granted that he was a pretty good writer.
Yeah.
Pretty early on, even. Like he probably spent all that time writing, but like most new people don't spend time thinking or crafting a joke. So then they get up on stage and it's just a bomb fest. So I don't think that the most important thing is to get as much stage time as possible.
Yeah, I could see that, because it seemed, and again, like I haven't spent time in your world in a while, but back when I did it, and going even to like one or two open mics with you in those early days.
Oh God.
And sort of like just understanding like the vibe and the mic scene is like, oh, and they're like they do, I don't know, like some of them are doing it every single day, but most of them are doing it at least a few times a week. And some are doing it multiple times a day. So I'm like, okay, great. Like, they're like, yeah. And it's like this bragging right. Like, oh yeah, I did 10 mics last week. But then I hear their set and it's literally like these just ridiculously dumb dick jokes. Like I know that's like kind of a like cliche. It's like dude starting out do dick jokes. But some of them have been doing it for like 10 years. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you've been getting up multiple times a week for 10 years. And that's what you have. I just don't, I'm with you. I think that's, I get the, I don't think it's a bad idea to like, of course, like get more, like you have to practice your writing at some point, of course.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, I agree. Even just dipping my toe into this world.
Well, and that advice may have been may have been better in a different time or a different place. For instance, in New York, the open mic scene is terrible.
Yeah.
It's disturbing. It's just a bunch of dudes talking about their dicks.
Well, and it is so different and I mean, like I haven't gone to a lot of the mics with you in other cities, but it seems like mics in other cities when you're on the road, those seem closer to like actual shows. Like they call them open mics, but it's like people like with like an actual 5-minute thing, not just you. And I guess there's someone, I've never seen a woman when you're open mics, but rumor has it they exist.
They exist.
But yeah, it seems very much like, a bunch of dudes get together and talk amongst themselves and do the same thing over and over. And I'm like, but you're not getting better.
Right.
Like maybe the better advice is you have to Well, I mean, I'm sure that they're doing this. This is underestimating them, but like get as much stage time as possible with the purpose of trying new material or like doing something different.
Yeah.
That seems like maybe a missing component.
Yes. And I will say, like, it's a very important thing, obviously, because that's the tip of the spear of this job is you got to get on stage and tell a joke in front of somebody instead of in front of a group of people. So you have to do that. Mm-hmm. And I think I at least had the benefit of having some experience being on stage in high school and college. So like I wasn't totally intimidated by the fact of standing in front of people saying things on a stage. So at least I had that kind of, though I wasn't totally fresh, but I think people should still get as much stage time as possible after they've written, or maybe for the purpose of trying new stuff a lot.
Yeah. And as I'm thinking this too, like maybe part of the point too is like, perhaps there isn't one like collective bit of advice that applies to everyone. Cause I could see some people maybe have fairly funny jokes. Like maybe they're like quietly quite funny and maybe their material's actually really good, but maybe they're not great on stage yet.
Yes.
Those people, then you probably say like, yes, you need to like get the cobwebs off. You need to get more comfortable with doing this in front of people with a microphone in your hand, like all of those things. Like that would be something I would need to work at. Not that like my writing would be flawless, but like I don't like being on stage. Even we just did that little panel on Friday. Like that is not my comfort zone.
Oh, really?
At all. Like that would be something that I would definitely. Someone probably should say do it as often as possible so that it feels more comfortable. But then I think there are other people that maybe feel really comfortable on stage, but their material sucks.
Yeah.
Or it's just not that funny. Like they may be great on stage, but their stuff feels stale.
I don't know. I don't know if this is more anecdotal or if this is, I mean, no one's going to do a test on this to figure out what it is, but I find that it's more likely. What am I trying to say here? If someone is a good writer but a new performer or like a nervous performer, but they're still a good writer, I find that person is more likely to be a woman than a man. Because I find myself at least, if someone is timid on stage and like they're just getting into it or whatever, but they're a great writer, chances are that person's a woman.
Maybe because she didn't want to. She's been busy writing. She didn't want to go hang with the dick jokes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And maybe that's because like it's just a bunch of dudes. It's a male dominated little world.
Yeah,
and
it's very much a boys' club from what I can tell.
Oh yeah, but it's not like a club. It's not a club like a lot of guys are trying to be a part of. It just happens to be a bunch of them hang out. But it's
nobody wants it to be all dudes.
Yeah, exactly. But I think maybe as an outsider coming in as a woman, she feels like. And like these women feel like they have to have better jokes, and they always do. Like and not always. There's some that are, it's still not great. But like I see so many of them, and they're so much better than guys at open mics. Anyway,
I can see that.
Oh, but real quick to your point, I didn't have a pumpkin to mark this.
Mm-hmm. You can use this piece of paper.
Oh, thanks. Well, now I'm gonna do it. Or now I'm gonna No. It was marked, and then now I'm gonna now right. We're getting to the idea.
I know, but now you have. Okay, whatever. Continue. No. Yes, I follow. Keep going.
Well, now I forgot what I was gonna say.
See the piece of paper here. If you hold the paper again.
Okay, I have to hold it while I'm doing it.
Do you remember?
But yes, I do remember. The road mics, the ones in the rest of the country outside of New York and I'm assuming and LA, those are much better. Because they are much more like a show. It's the only thing to do in, Springfield, Missouri or whatever on a Thursday night is go to the comedy club. Like I think it's the Blue Room or whatever and do a spot.
Well, I wonder if it helps too. And I feel like we've talked about this before, but it's something that I always just ponder. I ponder. This is what I ponder.
How often do you ponder?
Quite often.
Are you pondering while I'm flocking?
I wonder too if there's not a different, because they're in these smaller towns, and pretty much everything's smaller than New York, at least in the US. But I'm like in these smaller towns because there's so fewer clubs. Mm-hmm. And there's obviously like fewer aspiring comedians there as well. Whereas I feel like New York, because there's so many, you can kind of get away with being crappy because it's just sort of like there's so many like little basements that you can go to and be like, oh, I'm going to go get stage time. And like you can then pat yourself on the back because yay, I did it. But then like you also like the mics that I've been to in New York, like there is nobody other than the comics and maybe like the spouse or the partner's trying to be like supportive.
Yeah.
Like there's no audience members at most of those mics ever. and that's totally different than the other ones. And I wonder, other cities
Right.
that we've been to, and I wonder if that also doesn't create a different sort of pressure on the comics. Like if you're treating a mic like you're not just getting stage time, you're performing in front of people. I bet that's a huge difference.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I remember it was at Stand Up New York. It was a mic a few years back, and there happened to be there was like a small group of tourists that just wandered in. They were looking for a show, and we were like, well, we got one right now. And everybody was so excited that there were like 4 people who weren't also getting up on stage. And we basically did the show to those 4 people. I mean, they didn't laugh once, but it's an open mic. I actually switched material out that I was going to do.
See, and that's what it should be. Like maybe it's instead of getting more stage time, you should be, I'm trying to make people laugh. And I know that sounds so stupid, but like it's sometimes going to those mics, it really seems like, yes, and they've gone up however many times. I'm like, but did anybody laugh? And I know mics in New York aren't the best gauge of that, because as we've talked about, like most of the time, like because it's all comics performing in front of comics, most of you are like working on your set.
Yeah.
Like as the other people are performing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're just in the back looking at our notebooks or phones or whatever, and no one's paying attention.
I feel like this question was, what is an open mic in New York like?
Yeah.
Because they really just gave people an earful. But I agree. I ponder that often.
Well.
And I think, but yeah, no, so apparently I'm still sick. My brain feels a little bit slow. I heard you get that advice a lot when you started out as well. And now having seen you a few years later, I agree with you that I don't think the biggest strides in your career and your material have come from getting more stage time.
Right.
It's when I've seen you buckle down and really like get out that yellow notebook and just scribble. Like even the other night when we were doing it, like you were getting ready to go up on set and like you had that notebook up.
Oh yeah.
Notebook out and like we like just like tore into one of your bits and like reshaped the entire thing.
Yeah.
Like I think those are the times that I've seen your stuff get stronger.
Agreed.
And of course, yes, you need to go perform it and figure out the best way to do that.
And the other thing, it's so much easier to get more stage time when you are a better writer.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing. We do need the pumpkins. That was actually another thing I was thinking is, and it's sort of the same thing in the writing world too, where like you see people, not so much anymore, but like that idea of like, oh, just like the more you write and like enter contests and whatever. And I'm like, but that's not necessarily getting you closer to being published. Like, it's almost like figure out what your goal is. Like, is it to, like have a Netflix special or, sell at the Beacon Theater, all these things that we talk about. Like, if you put that there and like, okay, how do I need to get there? And like, you need to be good. And then, okay, how do I need to be good? And you say like, okay, stage time. And then at some point though, you need to like take a step back and say, have I improved from this? Yes or no? It's, it's the same in any art form. I know we're pigeonholed on comedy here, right here, but.
Well, maybe that's a great segue to let me ask you a question.
Oh,
Lauren.
Something you've been pondering, perhaps. I
have been pondering this because we both ponder, maybe not at the same time. Right. What is the worst advice you hear being told to someone just starting out in your field?
I'm having deja vu. Like maybe I've touched on this on the podcast before, but I'm going to do it again.
Okay.
And I talk about this sort of a lot on those panels that I'm not very good at. I am not.
Hold on real quick. You don't give yourself enough credit. You were engaging. So the quick backstory is Friday night we had a little panel thing at the Ripped Bodice in Brooklyn. It's a romance only bookstore.
Which is fantastic. Like I've been wanting to go for a while. So it's a famous bookstore. Nobody asked. We're going to tell them. It's a pretty famous bookstore in the romance industry in LA.
Right.
Because I think it's pretty much the only bookstore in the country that is dedicated to romance. And it's typically a very disrespected genre. So the fact that it has its own bookstore is a big deal.
Right.
The fact that they now have 2 is an even bigger deal.
Years ago, like when I had a real job and people are like, oh, what does your wife do? And I'd be like, oh, she writes romance novels. And then they would go, oh, you mean smut?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's that is definitely a topic. We could have a whole podcast dedicated to that. But anyway, so we did the Ripped Bodice in Brooklyn, which if you're in New York and you read romance, I absolutely recommend going. Like I was pretty excited because I've been looking forward to going and it still exceeded expectations. Like it is just like the cutest, best inventory. The people were so nice.
Oh yeah.
So highly recommend. But we did a panel there to talk about emergency contact and
which was
holiday
out
rom-coms.
October 24th, brand new book. It's our newest release.
It is.
Go ahead.
No, you started that. You said.
Oh no, but I cut you off to give
I was just going to say
the emergency contact plug. Our book.
Oh yeah, I was just say go to the bookstore, but you were the one that brought up her bodice.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because I was going to say you don't give yourself enough credit on these panels because you were engaging, you were funny. You were faced the right direction. I mean, really.
so proud of myself.
You did all the things you're supposed to do.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no, you were. I don't know what expectations you had or what concerns you had about your performance, but I thought people enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, I always just feel not fake, like I'm being disingenuous, but I'm.
That's another story.
Yeah,
No,
I just feel. It's not my like most comfortable thing ever, but. Oh yeah, panels.
Yep.
Advice that I give. I am not a big fan of the advice that you must write every day, and
Oh really?
no, yeah, I don't like it. And I actually, to be clear, like I don't think writing every day is a bad thing.
Okay.
I really don't. Like if like I think it is good advice, but I think what can happen is it's almost like because you hear it so often, and sometimes some really big name authors. Stephen King is a big one of this. Yeah, we for sure have talked about this, but let's keep going. Like you hear it from like these really great authors that are like, what's the key to being a better writer? Oh, you have to do it every day. And Stephen King famously writes like on his birthday and Christmas and everything. And I think that can probably lead to improving writing. Like if you want to write every day, I'm pretty sure that you will get better. But I think what can be really damaging is for people that can't write every day, when you hear that the only way to do it is that you must.
Oh, I see.
Then I'm like, no. Like you can still like that's a huge bit of pressure. And especially like if you're a new parent and you've got like the baby crying and like you have carpool, like you have 5 kids, or maybe you're working 2 jobs or 3 jobs, or maybe you're just getting started. Like, and also I'm like, well, if I can't commit to writing every day, can I not do it? And I'm like, no, I think you can write once a week. You can write once a month and you're still a writer. And I think sure, the more that you write, maybe the easier it'll get. But especially, and I'm thinking of like my first foray into writing. Like I didn't write every day. I wrote most weekends, but like
Right.
I had, like we had a busy life. I had a kind of at this time demanding day job. Sometimes I would have to do like those overnight deployments.
Oh yeah.
Like, I would
remember
be
those.
like up at 5 and I would sometimes go to bed at like 11 and like maybe if I was lucky, I could probably do like a couple sentences at lunch, like if I was really, really dedicated. But like, I think that idea that you, if you're not writing every day, you can't finish a book is crap, because I was just like a weekend warrior, I guess, on the writing front, and I finished a book that way. And even now, I still go through spurts. And for me, it's taken me a while to find my rhythm. But like rather than in general, like I am not one of those people, no matter how hard I try, of I'm going to write like 1,000 words every single day to finish this manuscript. Like I'm much more of like, oh, okay, it's due in 2 weeks, so now I need to write like whatever 5,000, 8,000 a day. Which is a lot. Like I will go through these sprints. You've seen me, or maybe
Yeah.
you don't see me.
You come out of the bedroom like a bear coming out of hibernation.
I do.
Like, what day is it?
Like I'll go for like probably half a month, close to a month, where like that's kind of all I do. It's all consuming. But then I go for months and I don't write anything, and I like it that way. Like I feel like for me, writing every day feels almost a little bit like draining. Like I don't have time to like do the thinking, creative part of it. So yeah, again, I want to say like writing every day is not bad advice necessarily. I'm just saying you don't have to do it, and it's not the only way to do it. And sometimes I feel like I hear it being preached as this is how you must become a writer.
So it can be good advice. It's just that don't get pulled into the trap of thinking it's a binary thing.
Yes,
like
exactly.
You're not a writer if you don't write every day.
And don't think if you want to be a writer and you want to finish a book, don't think that just because you're not writing every day that it can't be done. And yeah, and also you're allowed to take breaks. Like sometimes I feel like the best thing I can do, especially if I'm stuck on a manuscript, is be like, you know what? Like I am frustrated. I don't know what happens next. And I'll just say like, you know what? I'm not going to do it today. And yes, of course that means the next day I have a bit more. But that's another thing you told us, like you'll have to show up and whatever. I think like try, like I would never say like just because you're not in the mood, skip it for the day, because if you did that, none of us would ever get the writing done. But like if you're sitting there, like give it a solid like hour or whatever chunk you have, and if it's not flowing, I think it's okay to say, yeah, no, I'm gonna hit this tomorrow. I'm gonna let the muse chew on it. And then the other thing I would add, this is kind of related for designers a little bit, graphic designers, brand designers. And I
Okay.
think it would apply to other types of art forms as well. So we're not just talking writing and comedy. But I hear with like designers, especially starting out, of like take every project that you can get basically for the practice, like everyone
right.
that comes to you. And I think of like financially, that's not a bad idea. So like if your main thing is like, oh man, like I want to make money and someone wants you to build a website, definitely do the website. But in terms of doing it for like the creative experience or the expertise, I almost think that's worse.
Taking on
Stuff
that's,
that you're not excited about.
Okay.
Like I think there's actually probably more to learn, and this is something that's actually pretty new to me. But like the idea of doing what they call passion projects, where it's like nobody hired you to do it. It's just you have a vision for like a brand or a website. Again, this is my world specifically, and just go create that. Like make up someone that you're or a company that you're doing it for, and just do it just for fun, and then put that on your portfolio. The reason being, I think if you take on every single job that you get, you're going to get like a hodgepodge of other people's. You're basically just going to be like a contractor that someone is hiring to crank out whatever their vision is.
Well, I actually think that advice is applicable across industries as well, especially for like small business owners or self-employed people. Like when I was an independent headhunter for a while, and I remember like the advice was, some people would say like take any gig you can, any job you can, any role or whatever. And I like went to this training or whatever, and they basically said like, no, that's the stupidest advice ever. Focus in, niche down. Call back to one of our previous episodes, because like if you want to be like the guy for data scientists at the time, then you have to start talking to everybody in the data scientist world. You can't take on a job for minors. Like
right.
In North Dakota. I remember I had a buddy who was a recruiter.
Flockers.
Yeah, you can't start recruiting flockers. That's the appropriate time for a callback.
Okay.
Well done. I mean, I think that was golden.
Yes.
But yeah, you can't start recruiting flockers, because then maybe you place one or two of those guys, and then you start calling them like, hey, who do you know that's looking for a job, or who do you know that's hiring? And then you get in this flocking world all of a sudden. When instead, if you just maybe passed on that maybe easy money and focused on whatever it is you're trying to get, data scientists or whatever.
Oh my gosh, I just had a thought. So we have 3 minutes left.
We do have 3 minutes
and
left.
Hearing you talk about that.
Yes.
And then recalling what I just spoke about, and then also where we started with your advice.
Yes.
We've really kind of hit on this unintentional theme of common advice that we hear is quantity. Like you should get more stage time. You should write more often. You should take more jobs.
Whoa.
Whereas what we've both found through experience is like, okay, let's focus on quality, which is, that's a common theme, like quantity or quality. But like that is, I think that's a thread that ties them all together.
I think that is.
Like there is this, and I think that applies to like marketing stuff. Like we always, I feel like I'm always picking on Instagram, but Instagram's another one where you and I talk all the time of people like, oh, more followers, more posts. And that seems to be, that's another bit of advice. Like you got to post every day. And you've got to do reels and grid posts and stories and be active in the DMs and make sure you're engaging, like all this stuff. Whereas like, I don't know, like maybe if you were a little more deliberate on like, okay, what are you actually trying to achieve on Instagram? Like, why are you on Instagram? Is anybody actually liking what you're putting on Instagram? Are you liking what you're putting on Instagram?
Yeah. If you were funnier, it'd be, like that's like, at least in my world, it's like if you had spent all that time writing a better joke and not worrying about posting a clip or whatever, or, cutting it up or anyway, it is.
Yeah. I think there's something for all of these areas, whether it's marketing or design or writing or comedy, like of just giving yourself permission to like, almost like take a step back and figure out like what the actual thing is. Like, okay, what am I actually trying to do here? Like what almost sounds like really romantic. Like, we talk about the art, like the actual creation itself, like maybe giving that top priority.
The craft of
comedy, the craft of novel writing, the craft of design, of flocking. Like making sure that, that's the top priority. How do I get better at this? And I think it's easy to say, oh, you throw more time at it, you do it more often, because there is that, I get that idea of practice makes perfect. And I'm absolutely not saying that writing more often won't make you a better writer, or that performing more often won't make you a better comedian.
Right. Yeah.
Like please, nobody think they were saying that.
Well, Lauren said I could quit my job and just work once a month.
I find that interesting. It almost seems like it's like this Band-Aid approach of like, oh, you just do it more often, do it faster, do more of it.
Well, it does feel, we're down to 40 seconds. I was going to add, it does feel like you're doing the right thing, but that's misleading.
I think
like
so.
You may
yeah.
not be. There may be a better thing you could be doing in your craft.
Yep.
Okay, 30 seconds left.
Yes.
What's the best piece of advice you've gotten in you hear being given to new people in your field?
I don't have one yet. You go if you have one. I don't hear a lot of good advice.
I'm actually always skeptical of advice because I think that may have worked for you in your situation, but it's different for me in my situation.
Yeah, it's actually like my first thought when you said that was, and I don't know actually like that I've even heard this advice maybe, but like trust your gut. I think, and that kind of is like at some point, like, yeah, there's of course, like educate yourself and see what your role models and the experts did, but at some point, like you said, like everybody's different. There's going to be some part of you that knows like, oh, that advice isn't good for me. Like this approach isn't working for me. And just because it was really good for Stephen King or Seinfeld or, whoever, it doesn't necessarily I'm not disagreeing that has worked phenomenally for whoever, but that doesn't necessarily mean that if you follow that to the letter, that is going to be what you need to improve. Or succeed.
I'm sure there are a lot of comedians. Seinfeld is known for saying like, oh, when he was just getting started, he's like, I wrote every day and I have this little calendar and a month calendar and I would check off every day that I wrote for a certain number of hours, whatever. And then after a while it became such a long chain that his goal was like, just don't break the chain. Just keep writing.
So he fits into my little thing of write every day.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I do think that there are probably a lot of comics out there who have that super long chain who still aren't Seinfeld.
I think, yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
So that's the trick. I mean, like, I think the quantity is part of the equation, but there's also the quality.
Right. Yeah, I would say like give it a shot. Like I don't think it can hurt. Just know that I don't think there's just because you write every day or just because you perform as often, just because you got as much daytime as you possibly can, doesn't necessarily mean it's all going to fall into place.
Okay, so I know we're in overtime right now, and so we're almost over here. But I'm going to throw this out there. I wonder if so I don't write every single day religiously, and but I wonder if I did an experiment and did like 1 month of writing every single day, sat down and at least for an hour, like if I could find any measurable change versus everything before, something to ponder while we flock. Perfect.
That made me laugh. Okay, all right. I think we're you finally got one with the vlog.
Got one.
That's it. We're over time.
All right.
But this was a lovely chat.
It was a lovely chat.
I'm like when I was coming into this, a little behind the scenes, I am feeling a little low energy today. We had kind of a busy weekend. Didn't get a lot of sleep.
Not a lot of flocking.
Too much flocking.
Oh. Wait, who are you flocking?
Different page.
I mean,
I was artisanal flocking.
I was robo flogging.
Ew. Okay. So anyway, I was kind of like, oh man, I feel like I may be struggling. Maybe obviously I am struggling, but this was a better conversation than I thought we were going to have.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool.
All right.
Wonderful.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. As always, you can follow us on YouTube. You can watch this on the Candid Creatives channel.
Oh, I have my page up on my website. Remember we were talking about this?
Oh, yes.
So now laurenlane.com/candid/creatives. Anthony will add a link.
Candid-creatives, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, it's not like super fancy, but like I'm finally like, okay, you know what? I'm leaning into this. I have a podcast, making it easier for people to find.
Oh, and your store is up, isn't it? Can I announce that?
No.
Just kidding.
No, you can. No, you can't. You can. There's a couple of things I want to fix.
Okay.
But yeah, but a little background information. I am officially, as part of my 2023 pivot, and I'm sure we'll talk about this because I think maybe these next couple of podcasts, we should talk about like end of the year reflection.
Oh yeah.
Whatever.
Good idea.
But one of my things for 2023 that like I meant to do in February and now it's December, but it's to basically sort of like lean into the design part of Lauren Lane.
Yes.
And so now you can buy website templates and brand templates on my website, laurenlane.com.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that.
Yeah.
The website itself looks pretty cool, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
You designed that all yourself, and it's amazing.
I finally launched it, like Thursday, Friday last week, after many, many weeks of work. So, more on that to come.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. You can follow us online, Instagram by Lauren Lane. I'm Anthony Ladon. YouTube. We both have our own channels. You can find those in the links. And thanks so much. That's about it. Bye.
Bye.